Before we begin, make sure to subscribe, because today's story uncovers a shocking truth hidden behind private jets, polished uniforms, and assumptions about who belongs in the world of the wealthy. Imagine this: a black woman, calm and poised, steps onto a private airport tarmac. Her sleek white and gold jet waits silently behind her. She moves with quiet confidence, suitcase in one hand, designer handbag in the other, ready for her journey. But before she can board, a pilot steps in, raising his hand, blocking her path. Not because of rules. Not because of protocol. But because he decided, without asking a single question, that someone like her could never own something like that. What happens next? One call. 30 seconds of silence. And a truth that flips the balance of power completely. She stepped out of the quiet black SUV and felt the wind sweep across the private runway, carrying the sharp scent of aviation fuel and the faint whistle of a distant departing aircraft. Morning sunlight washed across the tarmac, turning the surface into a sheet of silver. Only a handful of people moved across the scene: maintenance crew, 2 security guards, and a ground assistant holding a clipboard. Quiet. Controlled. Professional. Her heels touched the pavement without a sound, and she paused for a moment, taking in the aircraft waiting in the distance. Sleek. Polished. White exterior with gold trimming that glowed under the rising sun. A private jet built for royalty and people accustomed to moving above the clouds. She carried no entourage, no flashing jewelry, no branded logos, no designer bag with bold letters demanding attention. Her elegance spoke for itself: minimal, refined, the kind that whispered power rather than begged for it. Her long black coat swayed lightly behind her as she walked, her steps measured and steady. People nearby glanced at her, then looked away, unsure of what to assume. They saw beauty. They saw class. But they did not see wealth, at least not the loud version they were trained to recognize. And assumptions have destroyed more reputations than mistakes ever did. She walked straight toward the aircraft, her chin slightly raised, her expression calm. She didn't rush. She didn't hesitate. She belonged there, and everything about her presence declared it. The ground assistant lifted his eyes, surprised but polite. "Good morning," he murmured with an uncertain smile, still checking the manifest. She gave a small nod. "Good morning." He glanced down the list again, confusion creasing his forehead. But before he could speak, before he could even ask her name, she was already within steps of the jet stairway, the path clear, the door open, the engines prepared. And then, everything shifted. A figure descended the steps, tall, rigid, dressed in crisp pilot uniform and mirrored black sunglasses. His expression stern, shoulders squared, voice sharp. Stop right there." She froze, not out of fear, but because the tone demanded a reaction. Not a request. Not respect. Authority saturated with assumption. He stepped down to the runway and lifted his hand to block her path, his palm inches from her chest. His jaw tightened as he inspected her, his silence loud enough for everyone around to feel the temperature drop. "Passengers are not permitted to board this aircraft without authorization," he said flatly. She looked at him calmly. "I understand." But he wasn't finished. His stance sharpened. His voice became colder. "This jet is reserved for private charter. You must be lost. The commercial terminals are on the other side of the facility. Someone from guest services can escort you." A few ground crew members stopped working. One tilted his head, sensing tension. Another slowly pulled off his headphones. Eyes began to gather, drawn to the quiet confrontation. She tried again, gently. "I'm in the right place." The pilot's expression hardened further. "No. You're not." He didn't ask her name. He didn't check a single document. He decided. And somewhere deep inside, a pressure began to build, not from her voice, but from everything she was refusing to say. The wind picked up, brushing against her coat as she stood motionless, watching the pilot's confidence swell. It wasn't the enforcement of rules she recognized in his eyes, it was something older. Something learned. Something dangerous. Assumption can be quiet, but it screams through the tone of a man who believes he already knows the ending of a story before it begins. The pilot continued, this time slower, patronizing. People don't just walk up to a $30 million jet and expect to get on. This is not a tour. Step away from the aircraft before I call security. They are already watching. Security guards shifted their posture, hands resting on radios, waiting for orders. Still, she didn't step back. The ground assistant swallowed, visibly uncomfortable. He opened his mouth to speak, but couldn't form the words. His eyes flicked between the woman and the pilot, torn between protocol and decency. She spoke softly, her voice steady. I believe there is a misunderstanding. The pilot scoffed, a sharp exhale of disbelief. The misunderstanding is you thinking you can just claim access to something like this. We don't allow trespassing, and I'm not repeating myself. Move along. Silence spread across the runway like a storm cloud. Even the engine hum seemed to fade. But she didn't argue. She didn't explain. She didn't raise her voice. Instead, she reached slowly into her coat pocket and pulled out her phone, her expression unchanged. The pilot laughed under his breath. Oh, you're calling someone, he said mockingly. That's fine. Call whoever you think is going to help you, but they won't change anything. You're not boarding this plane. She looked at him steadily, unblinking. That call may change more than you think. She pressed one button. Put the phone to her ear. And waited. No panic. No emotion. Just patience. The pilot folded his arms confidently. Sure. Go ahead. The phone rang once. Twice. A third time. Then someone answered. And her words, calm, controlled, surgical, cut through the silence. It's me. I'm standing in front of the jet now. I've been blocked from boarding. Every gaze locked onto her. Yes, she continued. By the pilot. He made assumptions. The pilot stiffened slightly. His certainty flickered. Yes, she repeated. I'll wait. She lowered the phone, but did not end the call. She simply held it, allowing silence to grow heavy and suffocating. A minute passed. Then another. The pilot's confidence began to evaporate. His breathing changed. His stance shifted. The ground assistant whispered nervously, Sir, maybe we should check the manifest. She doesn't belong here, the pilot snapped. I know what I'm doing. But his voice cracked. Then, suddenly, her phone lit up again. A second call incoming. She answered instantly. Yes. I'm here. Please go ahead. A voice boomed through the speaker, loud enough for everyone to hear. Put the pilot on the phone. Now? Every muscle in the pilot's face went rigid, the color draining from his skin. The runway fell silent. Eyes widened. Someone gasped. She extended the phone toward him. He didn't move. Take it, she said softly. His hand trembled as he reached. He pressed the phone to his ear. Yes, sir. A pause. Then whatever he heard hit him like ice water. His knees seemed to weaken. His arm dropped to his side. His sunglasses suddenly looked absurd, like armor dissolving in the rain. Yes, sir. Understood. Immediately. A heartbeat of silence. I'm sorry. Everyone thought the story ended there. But that was only the beginning. He stood frozen, the phone still in his hand, knuckles white, breath held tight in his chest. The pilot who just moments ago towered with confidence now looked small, unsteady, fragile. His authority, once displayed like a badge, slipped through his fingers like water. The woman didn't move. She didn't smirk or lean forward in victory. She simply watched, still as stone, letting silence speak louder than anger ever could. The voice on the phone erupted again, this time louder, sharper, commanding enough that every person nearby heard each word clearly. "Wait right there. Do not let that passenger leave. The aviation director is on the way." No one dared to breathe. The pilot swallowed hard, then attempted to regain his posture, straightening his shoulders, as if trying to rebuild the walls rapidly collapsing around him. He said, voice cracking, I apologize for the misunderstanding. I didn't realize." She lifted one hand gently, stopping him mid-sentence. The gesture was soft, graceful, but the meaning was undeniable. "You had your chance." The ground crew now stared openly, their shock poorly concealed. Even the security guards lowered their hands from their radios, suddenly unwilling to be aligned with the pilot's assumptions. One mechanic near the wing whispered under his breath, "Man, he just ended his own job." Another replied, "He never even asked her name. Just looked at her and decided." That truth landed like a stone. The pilot rubbed the back of his neck, beads of sweat forming along his hairline. His authority had slipped, and now he was struggling to grasp anything he could still control. He tried again, forcing a smile that cracked instantly. "Please, let me escort you aboard personally." "I'm sure." But she simply looked past him, toward the plane, and didn't move. It wasn't defiance. It was clarity. She would not step forward until the truth was fully visible to everyone watching. He felt the cold weight of that silence crushing him. He turned away, pacing, running a trembling hand across his forehead. A minute ago, he was the gatekeeper. Now he was the example. Then, the distant sound of fast footsteps broke the heavy stillness, the rapid arrival of someone in urgent panic. The airport director. Short, tightly built, breathless and sweating through a suit that probably cost more than he wanted to admit. His ID badge bounced against his chest as he hurried toward them, two assistants trailing behind like shadows. He skidded to a stop in front of her, chest heaving, eyes wide with horror and apology. He gasped, "I am so deeply sorry. I was informed of what happened. This behavior is unacceptable." The tension tightened. Ground crew leaned forward. The pilot stiffened, dread crawling through him like ice. The director didn't look at him. Not yet. He focused fully on her, voice shaking. "Please know, this situation does not reflect our values. We take responsibility, fully and publicly." She nodded once. "Calm." The director inhaled slowly, turning at last to face the pilot. His expression was devastating. "Captain Reeves," he said, voice cutting like glass, "you're relieved of duty." Immediately. The pilot's eyes widened, his voice trembling. "Sir, please. I made a mistake, but it wasn't." "This is not a discussion," the director snapped. "Hand over your credentials. Right now." The pilot froze, jaw trembling. "Sir, I've been here 8 years. I've never." "And today," the director said, voice low and lethal, "you proved 8 years meant nothing when faced with one moment requiring integrity." Every word sliced clean, precise. "Your employment is terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you from the premises. You are banned from flying or entering restricted airport facilities pending further review." The pilot's face collapsed. Disbelief. Fear. Humiliation. The ground shifted beneath him as the guard stepped closer, not forceful, but firm. "It was just a misunderstanding," he choked out, panic rising. I thought. That is the problem, the director replied quietly. You didn't think. You assumed. Silence burned hotter than shouting ever could. Suspense hook number 3. Everyone expected her to speak. To react. To deliver a speech drenched in fury or righteousness. But she remained quiet. And that silence was louder than any explosion. Security approached, motioning for the pilot to hand over his ID badge and access pass. His fingers shook violently as he unclipped them, the metal tag falling to the pavement with a sharp clang that echoed like a verdict. Heads turned. Whispers spread. He lost everything in seconds. She didn't even raise her voice. Just one call. The pilot looked around, desperately searching for support, for someone to defend him, to say he was a good man who made a small mistake. But the truth hovered above the runway like heavy fog. The price of assumption had finally come due. His voice broke. Please. I have a family. I need this job. It was a misunderstanding, just give me another chance. The director closed his eyes briefly, the expression not cruel, but resolute. If she had not made that call, if she had been someone without power or access, how would this have ended? The pilot's silence answered for him. Everyone knew. Escort him, the director ordered quietly. He was led away, no dramatic grabbing or dragging, no shouts or struggle. Just quiet footsteps fading down the runway. A career ending not with noise, but with the suffocating weight of regret. Only after he disappeared behind the terminal doors did the director turn back to the woman, standing unchanged, centered, powerful without trying. The director bowed his head. The aircraft is fully prepared for departure. The crew is ready, and your pilots have already been reassigned. If there is anything you require, it is yours. She looked at him, steady and calm. I only required respect. The director swallowed, nodding tightly. And it will be given. From this moment forward, without exception. She took one small step forward, placing her foot on the first stair of the aircraft. The ground crew slowly exhaled, reverent, even shaken. They weren't just witnessing wealth. They were witnessing discipline, dignity, and a power that did not need volume. She reached the top of the stairs, paused, and turned slightly, just enough that the sunlight framed her silhouette. And she spoke 2 quiet words, not loud, not dramatic. But sharp enough to leave a permanent scar on every heart present. Do better. Then she stepped inside, and the jet door sealed behind her with a hiss of pressurized closure. Inside the jet, the cabin gleamed with luxury, polished wood, leather seats, glass partitions, the quiet hum of conditioned air. She sat gracefully, crossing her legs, placing her phone neatly beside her. No celebration. No satisfaction. Just peace. The new flight crew entered with deep respect, offering polite greetings. The captain, a seasoned aviator with silver hair and steady hands, nodded professionally. We are honored to fly you. Clearance is secured. Ready for takeoff at your command. She nodded gently. Proceed. The engines began to roar, the jet trembling with power ready to be released. Outside, onlookers stood frozen, replaying what they had just witnessed. A quiet voice broke the silence from the ground crew area. Who is she? Another replied, almost whispering, as if speaking too loudly would break the spell. She owns the aircraft. What? The jet? The company? The aviation firm that services this runway. She's the majority shareholder. Eyes widened. Mouths fell open. The ground assistant who earlier struggled to speak blinked slowly. She wasn't trying to prove anything. Someone whispered, or dripping from every word. She didn't need to. The jet began rolling forward, gathering speed as it aligned with the runway, engines screaming preparation. And as it lifted into the sky, slicing cleanly through the bright air, the truth settled across the tarmac like a final verdict. Power doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits. Silent. Patient. Certain. Minutes later, a news bulletin hit the airport intranet system, visible to staff screens. Immediate personnel change. Captain Reeves terminated following confirmed discriminatory conduct toward ownership executive. Some employees gasped. Others nodded slowly. Everyone felt something shift in the room, the balance of power flipping quietly, decisively, permanently. In the jet's cabin, she gazed out the window at the shrinking world below. She didn't smile. She didn't celebrate. She simply whispered to herself, barely audible. A voice is optional. Respect is not. If silence can move mountains, if calm can flip the balance of power without a single scream, then what else is possible? Have you ever witnessed a moment where dignity defeated arrogance without a single drop of noise? Tell me about it in the comments. Let's talk about the strength that speaks without shouting. Like, comment, and subscribe. Because next time, the battle will be louder. And far more unexpected.